Hello, this is part 2 of ESL Comprehension Strategies at Work. My name is Franklin, and this is first1000hours.com.
Don't give up on your language learning marathon. You can make it. You can make it through your first 1,000 hours.
All right, and what I want to do is I want to talk to you about Connie's English as a second language class that she has done for Portuguese speakers. And I have two examples to share with you today, as well as another interesting thing that I think you'll like. Okay, so we're gonna go right into that right now. So this is an illustration of one of the cards that she did to illustrate her story. And you can see right here, this is talking about Connie's language learning story. This is talking about how she went to a Spanish class and what happened and all of that. So you can see right here at the top, it has the English because she was speaking and sharing the story in English, but then it also has the Portuguese at the bottom for people to make sure that they could comprehend. And so we're going to go into this. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. And this is what she did to start writing out her stories and planning them out. And I don't think you can see this on the screen, so I'm just going to share with you her Spanish story. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and read this. And it goes like this. When I was 15, this was in 1993, I wanted to learn Spanish. My parents gave me a Spanish dictionary for Christmas, but I was confused. Should I read it cover to cover? That is boring. There was a Spanish class at school. I was very excited. On the first day of class, the teacher only spoke Spanish. I was confused. I didn't understand. The next week, she made us memorize verb conjugations. I was frustrated. I couldn't remember any of them. Then she gave us a test. I flunked. I was frustrated. I couldn't understand any Spanish. When the class ended, I failed Spanish. I was sad and depressed. And I intentionally put things in bullet points because that's basically how she wrote out this Spanish story. And what she had to think about was, how can I illustrate every single sentence? And so when Connie has done when she's done stories, this story might be really short, like, if I can speak in English and just read it, it's very short to read, but she had to think about how to illustrate every single sentence. So she came up with doing maybe 40 to 50 cards, and she did these in cards, and I'll show you more illustration of cards in a second, before she started using PowerPoint and things like that. And when I looked at this story and thought about this in contrast to how I started to learn Spanish with Duolingo, what she was doing gives a lot more comprehensible input from day one. And this allows people to be a lot more familiar with English than if I think they were doing another typical language learning program like Duolingo. All right, so let's go ahead and continue so that you can understand a little bit more of what she was doing. Okay, so one of the things I didn't know how she would do is, how do you help people understand the words verb conjugation? How do you have a picture for that? And so on your screen is a picture of how she illustrated verb conjugations, because the Portuguese students that she was talking to are familiar with a verb conjugation book that's very similar to one that she was showing them. And so that's how she illustrated that. And you'll see right here what she did for her story. Instead of just having the original title, she just put some tape over part of the title, and then she wrote in there, as you can see right there, Spanish verbs. And I thought that was very creative. Okay, and so there's other things she did, like how do you illustrate 1 week later? So you can see that she filled in a calendar. She got a calendar, she filled in 1 week basically, and then she had the illustration there that people could understand what she was saying when she meant 1 week later. All right, and I'll go ahead and show you something else. And so she was confused in her Spanish class, and you can see that she has this picture right here of confusion. So she had other cards that she would create, and this is showing you some of the images that she was thinking about using, or she probably did use to, this is a picture right there of a teacher, and then there's a picture right there of confusion. And so that just, helps things be more comprehensible. All right, so now the question I had was, okay, you have on the card the English. and then you also have the Portuguese. But how do you make sure that your students, your Portuguese speakers, how do you make sure that they really understand the English instead of just maybe just reading the Portuguese on the card? And so I just want to share a few, some of the WhatsApps that Connie shared with me. All right, so she said new people came in late. So I showed them my first story again, the one about not learning Spanish since it was shorter. I had to translate here and there. I do this thing where I will say the sentence in English, and then she gets a puzzled look. All right, and then she translates it quick into Portuguese, and then she gets this aha look. Then I repeat it in English twice, and when she does that, she sees it stick. The new people kept up well, and the other students translate to themselves, which I loved. Now, the cool thing is when you have students that are helping out other students, then the students that are helping out the other students are even getting more understanding, because when you really know something is when you can explain it to others. And so she's really happy about that as well. All right, so that's one thing that she does. She will make sure that she will talk in English and translate into Portuguese and then speak again in English, but she does more than that. She also pays attention to people's facial expressions, and then she asks them questions as well. So I'm going to show you an illustration of that. So we'll go over here. But before we go there, this is what also she said. She said, after I would show them the card, many times I would use that exact vocabulary more freely. For example, I would ask them simple questions after 10 to 12 cards. They would understand pure English with no card help about 80% of the time. So the English was getting in there. So that's how she could make sure they understood. So this right here is a picture of some of the questions that she had prepared to ask them for the story that she was giving about learning Spanish. So I just want to just read some of those questions that she had. Okay, so this was one question. How old was I? And the answer obviously is 15. Now, the cool thing that she does in her class is she allows people to answer in English, and also they can answer in Portuguese. And because she knows both of those languages, then she can do that. So, but she's asking the questions in English. All right, and so she could show the card for the answer. What year was it? And she said, the answer obviously is 1993. She could show the card as well. What language did I want to learn? Obviously, the answer is Spanish. What did my dad give me for Christmas? And she could show the book. Did I read the dictionary cover to cover? No. Now, I really like this because she's able to ask a question that requires a yes or no answer. And even though people might just say yes or no, it really helps to understand how much they are getting from the English story. All right, and so did I think that the dictionary was boring? Should be boring. Did I go to Spanish class? Yes. Was I excited about Spanish class? Yes. Did the teacher only speak Spanish? Obviously, the answer is yes. Did I understand the teacher, or was I confused? And again, you can see right there that she has that word confused in her question, and that is also the answer. And so that is helping, again, people be reinforced with what she was already explaining in the story, and then that's reinforced even with her question, that vocabulary. Okay, let's continue. Did I understand the Spanish? Yes or no? Did the teacher want to memorize verb conjugations? Yes or no? Are verb conjugations difficult for English speakers? Yes or no? All right, so we're going to go on to the next story. This is the horse story. And you can see right here that, again, she has things that are showing, that are helping illustrate this horse story. And so we're going to go into that as well. But you can see in this picture, there's a barn, there's a horse right there, there's a fence, and you can see this cardboard cutout as well. And so this story was about Connie's mother. And so we'll go ahead and explain this a little bit more. This is what she WhatsApped me. I actually have model horses in a cardboard barn and a plastic fence to tell the story about my mom getting run off with a horse. It happened in 1956. So I have this cardboard cutout, 1950 style, with cowboys too. And then she just said LOL. Okay, so let's continue. So you can see again the cardboard cutout, and I already talked about the different things she had there. And she said, I set up my ranch and went all over the words for it, like fence, barn, cattle, etc. I even ran to the door holding horses and hollering. LOL. They really lit up on that one. Everything I said, they translated back 100%. And obviously, that's something that the teacher would really like, right? If you are sharing with your Portuguese students something in English and then they're able to explain it all back 100%, you know you're doing a good job. And what is really nice about this, and what I'm really excited about this, is when you are able to share English in a way that's comprehensible, your students are going to be like, wow, I actually understand this. And they will start noticing things not only in your class, but outside of the class. And that's what's happened. And I will be sharing with you probably the next month about some of those things as well. Okay, so I wanted to show you more things on this PowerPoint. And so next month I'll be starting with this example. And this is a story about Connie's grandparents. So I'll go more in depth about that. I also wanted to share with you a quote, or I mean, not a quote, really a comment that Living Quite Simply shared with me after she watched part 1 of the English as a Second Language Strategies That Work. And I want you to not only look, we're going to read this comment, but I also want you to participate in this discussion that this comment generated. So this is what Living Quite Simply said. She said, I love the concept of narration in English so students can follow along. I appreciate that you continue to put an emphasis on comprehension in the early part of language learning. Do you have recommendations for where homeschoolers may find someone who teaches in this style? I have a book that has a similar style using props to demonstrate what's being said, but I don't know Spanish myself, so it's hard for me to teach it to my children because my pronunciation is not accurate. And so if you see right here on this comment, it already has 20 replies. And so that was from myself, SK Language, and also Living Quite Simply. But I would like you to read those comments and then also participate as well. And so what I'm going to do is put on the screen a picture, an end screen where you can go ahead and click the video about English as a Second Language Comprehension Strategies That Work, Part 1. And then also YouTube will have on the screen a video that YouTube recommends. And I hope to see you in the next video.